Good evening. My name is Alexander Hagan. I'm the CEO of a small, medium-sized tech company in Silicon Valley. Previously, I was a financial analyst, financial journalist, and a research engineer in telecommunications. I filed several patents. Tonight, I want to speak to you about the alleged cover-up in the murder of the U.S. ambassadors Chris Stevens and 3 diplomats in Benghazi, Libya. The statements I'm about to make are not loosely researched opinions, but double-referenced indisputable facts, and I put the references in the comment sections below. The narrative states that there was a protest that turned violent and that the U.S. Embassy was attacked. This protest was sparked by the airing of this video that was released that was about Islam, that was extremely inflammatory. Now, the irony is that there was apparently no protest. It was a deliberately planned attack on September 11th by Islamic, I don't even want to say Islamic, right-wing religious extremists that we armed and trained to overthrow Gadaffi. The arms and training of these people was done by the United States of America and turned on us, and it was not at all surprising. Additionally, another irony is that there was no embassy. This facility was a rented building that was used to coordinate U.S. activities there. This may seem like a small detail, but it's an irony. It appears there was no protest, and there was no embassy. The Western press does not use many sources. There are dozens of local sources and Arabic sources, and these are seldom consulted. The fact is, we, the United States and NATO, along with our client states, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, trained the right-wing religious extremists who killed Chris to overthrow the Libyan government. I have now discovered that Turkey was also significantly involved in sending troops to Libya with U.S. encouragement, along with Qatar, in gross violation of the United Nations Resolution 1973 that we ourselves wrote. I will not repeat the excruciatingly detailed and numerous analyses and warnings I have tried to get out to the world via YouTube and my website, Microtopia, in the section Libya Conflict Analysis, as well as letters to the President and members of Congress, correspondence with those journalists that I could. The CIA apparently did a terrible job of informing Obama about Libya prior to decision to bomb it. Gaddafi's Libya, according to the United Nations Human Development Index, had the lowest crime rate, the longest life expectancy, the greatest equal rights for women, the longest number of years of education, virtually zero food insecurity, zero homelessness of any country in Africa or the Middle East, rivaling Chile and Argentina. And in fact, had lower poverty rate than the United States and outperformed the United States in high school education statistics. Of course, anyone who doesn't know this will be incredulous, but I do put this in the footnotes in the comments. And Africans have been rightly incensed over this invasion, as Libya was a significant investor in projects all over Africa. Libya was the only African country which had enough available free cash flow to build up African economies. The only African country. Of course, the West and China and so forth are pouring their funds in. Now, in the geopolitics that will be emerging, that your children and grandchildren will have to confront, as you are confronting now in our deindustrialization and shift to China. In order for the U.S. to really be cornered, China needs a vast resource base. When you look at the United States, we have a huge amount of natural resources, a trained population, a state-of-the-art military, and an overall declining system in many respects other than that, although many people don't want to see this or don't agree with me on this. And Africa is key. If you take China and you link it to Africa, you have something that can beat the United States numerically. I'm not saying that we don't have the old Yankee ingenuity, although I think everyone knows it's suffering greatly if it hasn't already disappeared. So Libya was key to being able to block China from entering into Africa. Now, you may think this is a good idea if you're a person who wants U.S. dominance at any cost. But if you research the matter, you'll find that alienating Africans to us. In other words, there's a strategic calculation by Hillary Clinton, the CIA, whoever it was that gave this wrong information, or whoever it was that took the right information and ignored it to invade Libya, because this created a recoil by many Africans. It may not be the Africans heads of state today, but educated Africans were horrified all over Africa, especially at the grotesque murder of the founding father of Libya. Whether you hate him or love him, he was the founding father of modern Libya, throwing off its colonial vestiges and dramatically improving the standards of living from 1969 to 1975. After that, it's a long story. We're not going to talk about that tonight. But if you look at the YouTube presentations I've done before, you will find the ones that go into the history, along with the Real News, which has an excellent historical analysis of Libya, although some of the work I've done is complements or extends or enhances, and in some cases contradicts the great Paul J. at the Real News. Africans have been rightly incensed over this invasion. The CIA, by obfuscating these facts, when they presented their report to the president to make the decision to take a peacekeeping resolution and turn it into the utter annihilation of the entire Libyan armed forces, whose only crime was to support their government, the soldiers, that certainly, or the administration by ignoring a correctly prepared report, because we haven't seen the report. We don't know the mechanics behind these decisions. We haven't found out yet. We turned a wonderful opportunity to pressurize the Libyan government to peacefully adopt a constitution and institute elections, which certainly by June of last year they were prepared to do. Because Gadaffi didn't really run Libya any longer. It was a group of people around him. He was quite an old man at this time. And his son Saif and his cousin, who was a spokesman for the Libyan government, if you go back and look at the press reels, Musa Ibrahim, these people had lots, and others had the capability to get the deal done, to transition to elections, and they were begging to put elections immediately because they knew they would do better than we thought they would. And you will see as history unravels. Now, people say that the reason the militias will not disband is because the government is infiltrated by Gaddafi supporters. What does this mean, infiltrated by Gaddafi supporters? Is our government infiltrated by Republicans or Democrats? People who have a certain political point of view are not infiltrators. Libya was not a country of thugs. There were thuggish elements, but if you go through the Amnesty International reports, the country had a 10% growth rate. But I get beyond the point here. We turn this wonderful opportunity for a peaceful transition for a country such as Libya after creating a ceasefire line, according to UN 1973, at Benghazi, cordon it off and put a stop to the conflict. But instead, Hillary Clinton said that Gaddafi should stop killing his own people because we're much better at it than he is. He should just move aside and let us get to work. Of course, I'm speaking cynically here. And that in order for us to have talks with Gaddafi, he has to go. And of course, you can't talk to somebody who's gone. Now, those who've watched my other presentations know I've made these points, but I have new material here for you. Now, in the case of Chris Stevens' death and so forth, for God's sake, the Al-Qaeda flag was hoisted over the court in Benghazi months before Chris was killed. Now, what is this Al-Qaeda flag? It is a flag in the Islamic Emirate, a flag that represents a dream of a single Islamic state spanning from the shores of the Atlantic in Morocco and the Sahara, going all the way down to Indonesia and up into Central Asia. And if you look at the history of the Golden Age of Islam, they were very enlightened rulers. Harun al-Rashid at the time of Sinbad around 800 AD, where they had gaslit street lamps, the highest science in the world in Baghdad. And now we allowed their libraries and all their manuscripts to burn as we guarded their oil embassies. Or Suleiman the Magnificent of the Ottoman Empire. So the fundamental impulse to restore Islam's greatness is not one that involves necessarily murder. So I just want to make a point of the flag of the Islamic Emirate. But nonetheless, an al-Qaeda flag being hoisted over the source of the revolution once Gadaffi was killed, it should be an indicator of who it was that we armed. The Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, a group of religious extremists who fought in Afghanistan alongside al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and his affiliates, who fought in Iraq against the United States, who fought in the Balkans, and this cynical and sinister alliance with Saudi Wahhabism and Qatari right-wing extremism is extremely disturbing. The sinister and cynical alliance of the United States with these elements and NATO. The largest weapon sales in United States history, about $80 billion worth, occurred in the first 2 years of Obama's presidency to the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has the worst record of any country in the world on women's rights. Saudi Arabia encouraged the right-wing elements in Libya, the Salafists, to destroy their archaeological heritage. I would tell you that the easiest job in the world that you could have would be to be the head of antiquities and archaeology at Riyadh University, because all you everything is as a matter of state policy okay to just simply destroy. And Tariq Ramadan is an interesting piece on Press TV about getting these people to stop desecrating historical sites. So we are now forging an alliance with this ultra-conservative Sunni imperial war machine that is driving Iraq into an alliance with Syria and Iran, which right now all three, Assad, the Alawites are Sunni, and Syria, Iran, and Iraq are both Sunni, Shia majority countries. So all three of these power structures are Shia, and they're going to be lining up against the Gulf states. Now, Turkey is also Sunni, and Turkey is really a part of what we call BRIC: Brazil, Russia, India, China, because the real BRIC is the E7, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, Indonesia, Turkey, and Mexico. And in fact, you'll find that a lot of the investment groups have cut BRIC out and have just focused on Turkey, Indonesia, and Mexico this year. Now, Erdogan is a right-wing religious extremist prime minister in Turkey. And he has thrown his lot in with these sinister forces. And it turns out that Turkey had a lot of troops on the ground, which is in violation of this UN Resolution 1973 that we drafted, but we encouraged the Turks to send their special forces in, along with over 1,000 Qatari troops, all the time denying there were any boots on the ground. And our poor quality media never bothered to really shine much light on this. But I do post in the references a 200-page long document that you can download that I have created of New York Times articles and so forth that leak out each and every one of the disturbing contradictions to the official party line. So Prime Minister Erdogan has thrown over 100 leading military officers in Turkey into prison with sentences of 16 to 25 years, claiming they were plotting a coup. And furnishing CDs and documents stating they planned a coup around 2003. But one of my coworkers is a Turkish physicist, although she works in different capacity for us, and she knows about this because she is a secular Turk, a follower of the modern Turkey's founder Kemal Atatürk. And the role of the military in Turkey is that if Turkey does get swept up by religious forces that try to violate having a division between church and state, it's the military's duty to intervene. So obviously when you get a conservative religious extremist prime minister, the first thing he wants to do is smash and hammer this group. It turns out that these documents that they claim were conspiratorial documents had graphs in them that couldn't have been made before 2005, 2 years after the alleged coup, had fonts in them that weren't even invented until 2007. So the material is fraudulent.